If you're a senior, this might be hard to hear, but it's the truth. Your body is lying to you. It's lying about when you're thirsty. It's lying about where your feet are. And it's lying about how much protein you really need. Most people think getting frail is bad luck or genetics. It isn't. There's a real biological shift that often hits in your 80s. Hydration changes, balance changes. Your muscles stop responding to protein the way they used to. Your metabolism slows, your senses dull. If you don't know all of this has changed, you keep following the health rules from your 50s, and those rules don't work anymore. Here's the serious part. Data from the National Council on Aging shows that 80% of older adults live with at least one chronic disease. But a lot of the struggles you might feel day to day, like falls, brain fog, and constant tiredness, don't come from age alone. They come from ignoring 5 major internal changes that creep up quietly once you cross that line. Your body at 80 isn't the same machine you lived in at 40. Think about someone you know who suddenly needed help climbing a single flight of stairs. That kind of change doesn't happen out of nowhere. It's the result of these silent shifts kicking in. The good news is huge. A study in the Journal of the American Geriatric Society found that older adults regained 30 to 40% of certain daily functions after simple targeted lifestyle changes, even when they started late. In this video, we'll walk through the 5 changes your body goes through after 80. I'll show you what's happening inside you and exactly how to turn these changes into strengths. Make sure you stay until the end. Point 2 is about something you ignore every day, and it might be the real reason for your afternoon crash. Before we start, tell me in the comments, what's one task that feels harder now than it did 5 years ago? Stairs, jars, bending, anything. Let me know. Now, let's get into the first change.
The first inevitable change is a biological phenomenon known as anabolic resistance. This is perhaps the most misunderstood concept in geriatric health. The misconception here is widespread. Most people believe that eating healthy is enough to maintain muscle. You might think, I have an egg for breakfast, I have a salad for lunch, I have a small piece of chicken for dinner, I'm eating clean. Or perhaps you have bought into the myth that at 80, you are simply too old to build new muscle tissue, that your body is in a permanent state of decline. This is a dangerous myth. The truth is, your body hasn't lost the ability to build muscle, but it has developed a resistance to the signal that triggers it. Think of your muscles like a light switch. When you were 40 years old, that switch was very sensitive. If you ate 20 grams of protein, say a small chicken breast, it was like flipping that switch on. Your body absorbed the amino acids, the lights went on, and your body began repairing and building muscle tissue almost instantly. But at 80, the wiring has changed. Your muscles have become deaf to those signals. That same 20 grams of protein, your body hardly notices it. It flows right through your system without flipping the switch. This biological mechanism is why you can eat what looks like a normal healthy meal and still waste away. This condition is driven by a decrease in the efficiency of the mTOR pathway, the biological trigger for growth. At 80, your body requires a much louder signal, meaning a significantly higher dose of protein all at once just to wake the muscles up and get them to maintenance mode. The Prot-Age Study Group, which is a major international consensus of geriatric experts, has updated their guidelines to reflect this. They state that older adults need significantly more protein per kilogram of body weight than younger adults just to maintain what they have. We used to worry that high protein would hurt the kidneys, but we now know that for healthy seniors without pre-existing kidney disease, the risk of muscle loss, sarcopenia, is a far greater threat to longevity. So how do we fix this anabolic resistance? We have to change the way you view your plate. We have to shout at your muscles. First, you need to understand the threshold theory. You need to hit a minimum threshold of roughly 30 grams of high-quality protein in a single sitting to flip that switch. Eating 10 grams at 8 a.m., 10 grams at 10 a.m., and 10 grams at noon does not work. The signal is too weak. You need the bolus, the large dose all at once to trigger protein synthesis. Second, we need to talk about leucine. Leucine is a specific amino acid that acts like the key for the ignition. If your protein source is low in leucine, the engine won't start. Animal proteins like whey, eggs, fish, and poultry are high in leucine. If you are plant-based, you need to work much harder to get this specific amino acid. So, practically speaking, stop having just toast and coffee for breakfast. That is a recipe for frailty. Instead, mix a scoop of high-quality whey or pea protein powder into your oatmeal. Instead of a simple garden salad for lunch, ensure there is a palm-sized portion, about the size of a deck of cards, of salmon, turkey, or beef on top. You must treat protein not just as food, but as a structural necessity. Now that we're fueling the engine properly, we have to look at the cooling system. This brings us to point number 2. It is one of the most insidious changes because it feels like absolutely nothing is wrong right up until the moment something terribly goes wrong. It is the broken thirst mechanism. The misconception here is simple and deeply ingrained. I drink when I'm thirsty. It sounds logical. It is what you have done your whole life. You trust your body's intuition. You assume that if you needed water, your mouth would be dry and you would crave a glass of water. Here is the scary truth. After 80, that intuition breaks. Your hypothalamus, the ancient part of your brain that regulates bodily functions, starts to misfire regarding hydration. Your osmoreceptors, the tiny sensors that detect the salt concentration in your blood, become less sensitive. Biologically, this means you can be severely dehydrated. Your blood can be thick and sludge-like, placing immense strain on your heart, and yet you will feel absolutely zero thirst. You will feel fine. By the time you actually feel a dry mouth at 80, you are likely already in a state of physiological emergency. Let me illustrate this with a story about Robert. Robert was 84 years old, a retired engineer who prided himself on being active. He was cognitively sharp and physically capable. Last July, during a heat wave, Robert decided to spend the morning pruning his rose bushes. He was out there for 3 hours. He felt fine. He wasn't sweating excessively, and most importantly, he didn't feel thirsty. He had a bottle of water on the porch, but he didn't touch it because his brain never sent the signal, drink. Around noon, he stood up to head inside for lunch. His blood pressure, unable to compensate due to the low fluid volume in his blood vessels, bottomed out. He fainted instantly. He woke up in the emergency room with an IV drip, confused, scared, and facing a broken wrist from the fall. He kept telling the doctors, "But I wasn't thirsty." Now compare that to Eleanor. Eleanor is 82. She learned about the broken thirst mechanism years ago. She understands that her brain lies to her. She doesn't wait for the signal. She treats water exactly like she treats her blood pressure medication, as a non-negotiable scheduled event. She has hydration checkpoints in her day. She hasn't had a dizzy spell, a fall, or a urinary tract infection in 5 years. And that's a key point. Urinary tract infections. Research highlights that older adults consistently fail to replenish fluids, leading to concentrated urine. This is a breeding ground for bacteria. In seniors, a UTI doesn't often present with pain. It presents with sudden confusion, delirium, or hallucinations. Families often think their loved one has suddenly developed dementia, when in reality, they are just dehydrated and have an infection. So we need to move from intuitive drinking to scheduled hydration. We need to adopt the bookend method. Drink 1 full glass of water immediately upon waking up. You lose a tremendous amount of water simply by breathing while you sleep. You wake up dried out. Rehydrate immediately. Then, drink 1 full glass an hour before bed, timed so you don't have to wake up constantly to use the restroom, but enough to keep you hydrated through the night. And there's a nuance here for the 80-plus body. Plain water can sometimes run right through you. At 80, your kidneys handle electrolytes differently. Consider adding a pinch of high-quality pink sea salt or a low-sugar electrolyte packet to your water. This helps your cells actually absorb the fluid rather than just flushing it out. Do not rely on first, rely on the clock. If it's noon and you haven't had 2 glasses of water, you are behind schedule, regardless of how you feel. So we have the fuel and we have the coolant. But what happens if your body can't break down that fuel? Point number 3 is about your digestion, and it is the reason so many seniors suffer from malnutrition and anemia despite eating plenty of good food. This is hypochlorhydria, or the drop in stomach acid. This is a topic that almost no general practitioner talks about until the symptoms are severe. We are conditioned by decades of television commercials to think acid is bad. We are told that acid causes heartburn, indigestion, and reflux. So when we feel a little burpy or bloated, we reach for the antacid. But at 80, the opposite is almost always true. The problem is not too much acid, it's too little. As we age, the parietal cells in the stomach lining atrophy. They simply get tired and produce less hydrochloric acid. Why does this matter? You need strong, potent acid to break down that protein we talked about in point number 1. You cannot digest steak or chicken or even beans without acid. Furthermore, you need an acidic environment to absorb calcium for your bones and vitamin B12 for your brain and nerves. If you have low acid, which affects up to 50% of adults over 80, and you take an antacid on top of that, you are essentially turning off your digestion. You are flipping the off switch on your stomach. The food you eat sits there. It doesn't digest. It ferments. It rots. That fermentation creates gas, and that gas pressure pushes back up against the esophagus. It feels like heartburn, it feels like fire, but it is actually the byproduct of rotting food in a low-acid environment. So this leads to a cascade of failure. You eat protein, but you don't absorb it, so your muscles waste away. You eat calcium, but you don't absorb it, so your bones get brittle. You eat B12, but you can't process it, so you develop peripheral neuropathy, that tingling in your hands and feet, and brain fog. So how do we safely boost digestion without medication? How do we turn the acid production back on? First, we look to a simple natural remedy, the apple cider vinegar hack. Mix 1 tablespoon of organic apple cider vinegar in a small glass of water and drink it about 10 minutes before your main protein meal. This introduces exogenous acid into the stomach, lowering the pH and priming the pump for digestion. It signals the stomach that food is coming and helps tighten the sphincter at the top of the stomach to prevent reflux. Second, we must adopt the chew to 20 rule. Since your stomach's chemical digestion is working slower, your mechanical digestion must work harder. You have to compensate. Most of us chew 3 or 4 times and swallow. At 80, you cannot afford that luxury. You need to chew every single bite 20 times until it is essentially liquid before you swallow it. You are doing the work in your mouth that your stomach can no longer do alone. Third, consider bitter greens. Eating a small salad of arugula, dandelion greens, or radicchio before dinner triggers a vagus nerve response that stimulates digestive juices. It is an ancient tradition in many cultures to have a digestif, or a bitter salad, and there is real science behind it. Now that we are digesting our food and hydrating our blood, we need to protect the system that keeps us upright and moving through the world. Point number 4 is frightening, but fixing it is incredibly empowering. It is about proprioceptive decline. This is the hidden cause of falls. Most seniors believe that falling is just an accident or a result of weak legs. You think, I just tripped on the rug, or I was clumsy. It usually isn't the rug, and you aren't clumsy. It is your map that is fading. Proprioception is your brain's ability to know where your body is in space without looking at it. It is the reason you can close your eyes and touch your nose. There are millions of tiny nerve endings in the soles of your feet, in your ankles, and in your knees that send instant, high-speed signals to your brain saying, the ground is uneven here, adjust the ankle, or we are leaning too far left, correct the posture. After 80, that signal transmission speed slows down. It's like trying to download a large file on a slow internet connection. The nerve endings in your feet become less sensitive, a condition often called peripheral neuropathy, even if you aren't diabetic. Essentially, your GPS is lagging. By the time your brain realizes you are tilting off balance, it's too late to send the signal to catch yourself. Let's look at a case study of a man named Arthur. Arthur was 82. He was terrified of falling, so he did what he thought was safe. He bought the thickest, sturdiest, heaviest orthopedic shoes he could find. He wore them everywhere inside his house. He started to shuffle when he walked. Because his feet were encased in an inch of rubber, they couldn't feel the floor. His brain was receiving zero sensory data from his feet. He was flying blind. One afternoon, he transitioned from the hardwood to the carpet. Because he couldn't feel the texture change, he didn't lift his foot high enough. He caught the edge, and because his reaction time was dulled by the lack of sensory input, he took a bad fall that impacted his hip. Now, let's look at Margaret. Margaret is 85. She treats her balance like a skill to be practiced, not a trait she has lost. She understands that nerves need stimulation. Margaret spends time every day barefoot on safe surfaces like her carpet or the grass in her backyard. She actively tries to feel the ground. She challenges her balance. According to the British Medical Journal, specific balance and functional training can reduce the rate of falls by nearly 30%. It is not just about muscle, it's about the neural connection. It's about cleaning the rust off the wires. We need to recalibrate your GPS. We need to wake up your feet. When you are safe at home, perhaps holding on to a sturdy kitchen counter, try standing barefoot. Close your eyes. Without vision, your brain is forced to rely on the data from your feet. Rock slightly forward and backward. Feel the pressure change in your toes. This is heavy lifting for your nervous system. Try the flamingo stand. Build this into your routine. While you're brushing your teeth, stand on one leg for 30 seconds. Hold the sink with one hand for safety. This forces your brain to make thousands of micro adjustments in your ankle to keep you upright. You are training your brain to react faster. Or try dual tasking. This is the gold standard for fall prevention. Walk around your living room, safely, while counting backward from 100 by threes. 100, 97, 94. This forces your body to balance on autopilot while your brain is busy doing math. This mimics real life, like when you're walking and talking to a friend. That's when most falls happen, and this drill prepares you for it. We have covered muscle, hydration, digestion, and balance. These are the mechanical and structural pillars. But there is one final change that underpins everything. It is the fire burning inside your body that accelerates aging, and you might be feeding it every single morning. Point number 5 is what scientists call inflammaging. This is a portmanteau of inflammation and aging. We tend to think of inflammation as what happens when you sprain an ankle. It gets red, hot, and swollen. That's acute inflammation. It's the body's ambulance service, and it's a good thing. It heals you. But after 80, the immune system undergoes a process called immunosenescence. It gets confused. It enters a state of chronic low-grade alert. It starts releasing inflammatory chemicals, cytokines like interleukin-6, constantly, 24 hours a day. It's like a fire alarm that never stops ringing. This invisible fire damages the lining of your blood vessels, leading to heart disease. It degrades your neurons, leading to cognitive decline. And it actively eats away at muscle tissue, making it impossible to build strength. What fuels this fire? In the modern diet, it is often fueled by sugar and processed seed oils. The toast and jam breakfast that was fine when you were 40 is now like throwing gasoline on a fire at 80. At 80, your insulin sensitivity is naturally lower. When you eat sugar, it stays in your blood longer, caramelizing your cells, a literal process called glycation. This creates sticky proteins that gum up the works of your organs. Studies in the journal Nature Immunology confirm that chronic inflammation is a primary driver of frailty and age-related diseases. Controlling this fire is the master key to longevity. We need to douse the fire. We need to switch from inflammatory fuels to anti-inflammatory fuels. First, look at the omega-3 shield. Omega-3 fatty acids are the biological fire extinguishers. If you aren't eating fatty fish like salmon, sardines, or mackerel 3 times a week, you are likely deficient. You should speak to your doctor about a high-quality omega-3 supplement. This helps soothe the joints and protect the brain. Second, look at the white hazards. Drastically reduce white sugar and white flour. I'm not saying you can never have a cookie again, but at 80, these foods are expensive for your body to process. They cost you health. Swap the white toast for a high-fiber bread, or better yet, skip the bread and have more eggs. Third, use the turmeric trick. Incorporate curcumin, the active ingredient in turmeric, into your diet. When mixed with black pepper, it becomes one of the most potent natural anti-inflammatories available to us. It has been used for centuries, and modern science is finally catching up to its benefits for joint pain and cognitive protection. Let's take a breath here. I know this sounds like a lot of change. I know it can feel overwhelming to think about protein thresholds, osmoreceptors, and stomach acid all at once. But remember, knowledge is power. The fear you feel about aging often comes from the unknown, from not understanding why your body is changing. Now you know. Let's quickly recap the 5 pillars of strength after 80 so you can lock them into your mind. 1. Fight anabolic resistance. Your muscles are death. Shout at them with at least 30 grams of protein per meal to trigger growth. 2. Fix the broken thirst mechanism. Don't trust your thirst. It will lie to you. Schedule your water intake like a prescription to protect your kidneys and your mind. 3. Correct hypochlorhydria. Support your falling stomach acid levels by chewing your food thoroughly and using a little apple cider vinegar to unlock the nutrients in your food. 4. Stop proprioceptive decline. Wake up your feet. Practice single leg standing to sharpen the neural pathways that prevent falls. 5. Extinguish inflammaging. Reduce the sugar that fuels the fire and increase the omega-3s that put the fire out. If you take nothing else away from this video, please remember this core truth. Your body is resilient. It's an incredible adaptive machine that is waiting for the right inputs. It doesn't matter if you're 82 or 89. The moment you start giving your body what it biologically craves today, it will respond. The human body wants to heal. It wants to be strong. You just have to give it the right tools. Here is my challenge to you. Don't try to do all 5 things tomorrow morning. That is a recipe for stress and failure. Pick just one. Maybe this week is just hydration week. Focus entirely on that water glass by your bedside. Master that one habit until it becomes automatic. And then, and only then, come back for the protein. I want to know which one you're going to choose. Are you going to start with protein, water, digestion, balance, or inflammation? Type your choice in the comments below. I read them and I want to cheer you on as you take this step. Thank you for investing this time in your health. You are worth the effort. You have so much life left to live, and you deserve to live it with strength and vitality. Stay strong, stay curious, and I will see you in the next video.